During Game 5 of the 2018 Western Conference Finals, there was a moment where then Warriors star Kevin Durant and coach Steve Kerr exchanged words. Typically we wouldn't be able to hear what they were saying, but they were mic'd up in this instance.
Kerr ended up telling a story about his former Chicago Bulls teammate, Michael Jordan. He didn't have much time to go into detail and KD almost appeared to be shooing him away, but it was long enough to make a point.
Durant can score, that's not a secret. But Kerr wanted to remind KD that he needed to trust his teammates. Even MJ needed to do that at one point, and he was MJ.
The comparison stuck with KD.
I really enjoyed that conversation, having somebody that was that close to the legend, Michael Jordan, tell me, and feel confident that we're in similar positions at the moment made me feel good about myself, that he can relate that moment to Michael Jordan. Durant would later tell reporters, HT for the win.
Related, what Steph is learning from watching The Last Dance.
During the advice game against Houston, Durant scored 29 points in a loss to the Rockets, who would take a 3-2 series lead. The Warriors, of course, came back to win the series and then sweep the Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA Finals to win the 2018 title.
Despite what was said about the exchange, Durant was more than appreciative of the words of wisdom about arguably the best player to ever play the game.
Runnin' Plays podcast. Listen to the latest episode.
Draymond Green arbitrarily picking fights with members of the Warriors organization is the type of content we all need and deserve during these tough times.
During a recent appearance on The Rory and Carson podcast, Golden State superstar Steph Curry shared something that should have you laughing out loud.
Draymond, he's loud but he asks for it. He wants every single confrontation. He's amazing in that verbal warfare. You don't want to pick that fight. He's the type of guy that if the room is too quiet, like in our locker room, when we come into the arena and you got guys listening to their music or in their own space, he's gonna pick a fight with one of us to get himself going.
He just needs it. It's either gonna be a teammate, it's gonna be somebody on the training staff. They're either gonna have a debate about who's the best quarterback, or he's gonna make fun of their outfit or something. And they're just gonna go at it.
So he can go out on the court and already feel that juice. That's why I love him. I love that type of entertainment.
I would read a whole book full of these types of stories, or at least listen to an entire 2-hour podcast of Draymond narrating past examples of what Steph described above.
That would be pure gold.
Runnin' Plays podcast. Listen to the latest episode.
Anyways, when Carson Daly followed up by explaining how much he loves NBA trash talk, the two-time NBA MVP had the perfect response.
Related, Curry promises there are adversarial relationships in NBA.
It's not our fault. Let's put it that way. It's really hard to bring that when you're getting all these texts and stuff, he said. I want the demonstrative NBA back.
We don't want nobody getting their head cut off with a hard foul, but we should be able to talk.
Amen to that.
Follow at Drew Schiller on Twitter and Instagram.
The Warriors' recent dynasty has drawn parallels to the Michael Jordan-led Chicago Bulls of the 1990s.
Steve Kerr, who played alongside Jordan in Chicago and now coaches the Stephen Curry with the Warriors, explained how the two superstars are similar.
Both players were and are just incredibly hardworking, Kerr said during a digital conference with the University of San Francisco on Tuesday. So you know when your best player is also the guy who's there first, you know who stays the latest and is constantly working to get better. It kind of sets a tone for the whole organization and that's what Michael was. He worked so incredibly hard.
Kerr, who signed with the Bulls before the 1993-94 season, played alongside Jordan for 3.5 seasons, winning 3 titles in Chicago. In 2014, he was named coach of the Warriors, overseeing a roster headlined by Curry, sharpshooter Klay Thompson, Draymond Green and eventually Kevin Durant, who signed in 2016.
In Chicago, Jordan was hard on teammates, routinely calling them out if they didn't match his workout. With Curry, Kerr says he saw a difference in leadership style.
This is more in the Tim Duncan mode of sort of a quiet leader, a humble leader, you know, brash on the court, but very, very quiet and respectful and humble with his teammates, Kerr said. Whereas Michael was a guy who drove us.
Run and Plays podcast, listen to the latest episode.
With a star-laden Warriors roster, Kerr won 3 championships in 5 seasons, leading Golden State to the best 5-year winning percentage in NBA history. In Chicago, he was a part of a record-setting Bulls roster that won a then-record 72 games. While each team was successful, Kerr says there was a contrast in how the teams were covered.
The biggest difference that I recognize then and now is what the players have to go through once they leave the facility, Kerr said. The media attention was incredible at the facility, at games, but when you go home, that was it. It was over. This was pre-internet or at least pre-social media.
Nonetheless, Curry and Jordan headlined teams that became a part of America's consciousness. With personalities like Green, Durant, Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen, the teams typically drew capacity crowds, particularly on the road, where fans would wait outside the team hotel for hours to get a glimpse of the two rosters.
Related, KD appreciated Kerr's Jordan advice.
The experience is actually very similar, Kerr said. Especially when we signed Kevin Durant and we had this array of talent across our starting lineup because, between Draymond, Steph, Klay, Kevin, these guys were loved around the country, around the globe.
And so everywhere we would go, Kerr added. There were people waiting outside the hotel and reminded me so much of Chicago, just the anticipation.